Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the Iowa Teacher Dyslexia Support Group. My name is Amy Manning, if you haven't joined us before, and I facilitate the group. We started back in January of 2021 just for reaching out and supporting each other with knowledge around dyslexia and processing kids. And then we also began getting more presenters to come to us on a monthly basis. And it's just been like so much knowledge building for all of us. I think for this year, we kind of were doing lots of presenters, and I do want to get back into the support role again too for all of us. Everybody has so much knowledge and expertise and ways to help kids directly in the classroom. So I was thinking every other month we would do a presenter and then a support or discussion month as well, and see how that goes and see how we like it. So feel free to share our information out to anyone that's ever interested in dyslexia or structured literacy. I really love getting application routines, procedures, and things like that out to teachers that they can use in their classroom the next day as well. So Ashley is from California, and she is definitely one to watch on Facebook. She has been sharing for a year or two now, like tons of free knowledge and free resources that she's developed herself. And she graciously agreed to come to our group to talk. She's a kindergarten teacher, so she's in the trenches every single day, and how she is using structured literacy in her classroom and the science of reading. So I'll turn it over to you, Ashley, and can't wait for this
All
session.
right. Okay, so yes, my name is Ashley Sherf, and I teach kindergarten at a small charter school in Northern California. I have taught here for 10 years. I am also currently this year the literacy specialist at my site, and am developing the literacy program and the literacy intervention program at my site because we don't have something that is substantial and awesome at this point. So I'm working on building that up. I will share my screen and tell you a little bit more about myself. All right. So can you guys all see that before I talk for 10 minutes? Okay. Okay. So I originally went to Humboldt State University, which is in California, and got a degree in child development. And I used that to open a preschool. I taught in and ran my own preschool for 10 years. So I have a lot of experience with younger children and child development. And then I have two kids of my own. And when they were starting school, there was not a school available in my area. I live in a very small area that I felt was quality or awesome. So I decided to help start a charter school. So I'm a founder of a charter school in Willits, parent founded, not the big industrial kind. And the first year that it opened, they did not have a kindergarten teacher, and they had people filling in and trying to figure it out and splitting classrooms. And finally they said, like, we need to hire a kindergarten teacher. Ashley, will you do it? And I had to sell my preschool, enroll in a credential program, which was through Monterey Bay. So I taught kindergarten for 2 years while I was getting my credential. And the reason I never wanted to be a teacher of like school age kids in the first place was I was scared to death of teaching kids to read. I thought I would do a terrible job. And I thought, like, that's way too much to put on one person to teach someone to read. If you fail, like, you have failed them entirely. So, but funny thing turns out that I actually turned out to be really good at it. So as I was teaching, decided that I wanted to get an added authorization in literacy. So I went to UC San Diego online while I was teaching to get an added authorization in literacy so I could be a literacy specialist. But the main problem overall was, even after that program, I kept having struggling students that I could not figure out how to help, and no one was telling me how to help them. And I kept being like, what you're telling me is not making sense. These kids need something else. So I started doing my own research and discovered lots of stuff on Facebook and started learning more about structured literacy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing in my class and this is what is working. I need to learn more about this. It makes sense. So I went on and I did the reading teachers top 10 tools, which I highly recommend. It's quick and easy, and gives lots of information. And now currently I'm getting my master's in reading in literacy with an added authorization in dyslexia endorsement through University of Central Arkansas, which is the IDA approved. So it is so far a great program. It is all online. So I am teaching full-time and I am starting the literacy program at my school and I'm getting my master's. And then I also got my school to agree to get all teachers letters trained this year. So I'll also be doing that. So I'm gonna be very busy. So that is a little bit about my educational background and my knowledge about literacy and very quick journey over the past 15 years of learning how to teach kids how to read better. In addition, I have a family. I've been married for, I'll be together with him for 20 years in October. So we've been married a long time. I have 2 kids who are now 16 and 13. And my oldest daughter, Audrey, is dyslexic, she also did not get identified or get any type of 504 until like 6th grade, which I knew something was wrong the whole time, but I could not figure it out. And she's a straight A student, so no one would give her any services. But I, as the parent, was at home watching her struggle and knew that it wasn't as easy as, it seemed to everyone else. So that's also part of my journey. My favorite thing to do is camp, go camping in my van. We mountain bike a lot, backpack, do lots of outside stuff. So I'm also a human outside of all of my obsession with literacy, which my family cannot stand me talking about anymore. So thank you for joining me here, listening to what I'm saying, because my family's like, cool. I don't want to hear about it anymore. So why are we all here? Because teaching reading well is hard. So generally what Amy's having me come here and do is talk about how I teach reading in my classroom and how I get good results. Some of the mind shifts that I did as a teacher to improve my reading instruction along the way. And then some of the resources and activities I use a lot, and I will share all of those with you as well. So the main reason that teaching reading well is hard is that there is generally, which I'm sure all of you no longer have this belief, but that if you're immersed in print and you read a lot and people read a lot to you, that you will become a good reader. And this is, as we know, not true. It is not a natural process to learn how to read, which is what makes teaching reading difficult. The reason it makes teaching reading difficult is, this is one of my favorite quotes from Seidenberg, but humans are poor evaluators of their own cognition. What that means is as an adult, when you read, it feels like you're reading whole words and you're just scanning across the page and reading one word at a time and not decoding. But we all know that that is not the case. But what that causes is adults who teach reading in that way because they think that you're reading whole words. As an adult, you think you're reading whole words until you learn otherwise, not decoding individual sounds or graphemes. So because of that, it leads to people teaching in that way because they think that's how it's working. It actually took humans 3,000 years to create an alphabetically written representation of language, and reading is not natural. And so when you are asking kids without explicitly teaching them how to connect the sounds that we now know make up human speech to graphemes, you're asking them to recreate a 3,000-year process if you are not structuring it for them and telling them how to do it. Because we know how to do it, there's no reason to have them figure it out themselves, which could take 3,000 years and does for some students if you don't explicitly teach them how to do it. So the whole goal is to basically tell them, explain to them, show them, help them practice the code until they can fluently decipher the code that we have created to represent our spoken language. So children should not be asked to recreate this process. We need to do it for them. The way that this works is that students need instruction that is explicit, meaning you tell them exactly what to do and how to do it. I'm doing a presentation right now, so I'll talk to you later. It needs to be systematic, which means it moves from one thing to the next. Sequential meaning like it doesn't just move from one thing to the next, but it moves from one thing to the next that makes sense. And then cumulative, meaning that it all in the end is building off of itself. So basically, you're not going to tell the child, this is, you know, the sound for short A, and then tomorrow we're going to do long E, and then the next day do, like, it needs to follow a sequence, it needs to be systematic, and it needs to build on itself in overall. On the right here, I have an example of the scope and sequence that I helped develop at our site. This is ever changing. There is not an exact scope and sequence that is the perfect one that needs to be followed. Each program has a slightly different one. But there are some general rules to follow about letter introduction and skill and the amount of information it takes to master a certain skill. All of those vary greatly. And I can talk about which things I think work well, but there's lots of different beliefs on that. I can answer questions on that later if needed. Basically, the reason that I'm here is that my students tend to have really, really high reading scores by the end of the year. A lot of times I have the majority of my class reading at or near the end of first grade levels. So this right here is just a little bit of information about my last year's class. When they came in at the beginning of the year, I had 4 students who knew all their letter names, but none of the students coming in knew all of their letter sounds. And only 1 student could segment a CVC word. Like if I said, say cat, what are all the sounds in cat? Act. Only 1 student could do that. The other students could not do that. So one, I use lots of different screens. I use core phonics screen and lots of different assessments, but one assessment I use is this one on the left called the BPST, which is Basic Phonics Skills Test. The reason I use it is because it's super quick, and I can give it often. It also has a nonsense word version, so it's usually my first go-to screen to see what skills a kid may be missing. So that's what this data is based off of. At the beginning of the year, basically from this information, my kids could not get past, this is just letter sounds. So none of them could get past the first box. And the way it works is you have them tell you the sounds, and then you have them read the first row, the next row, and you just keep moving down until it becomes too difficult or they don't have the skills. So by the end of the year, this was my class. If it's green, it means the kids could read and write these spelling patterns fluently. Yellow means they got 1 to 2 of these incorrect, and red means they did not get at least 3 correct, meaning they don't have that skill mastered. So as you can see, by the end of the year in my kindergarten, a majority of my class, like if you include the yellow, because that means they only missed 1 or 2 words, got all the way up through what is basically kindergarten or first grade end of year standards, which includes vowel pairs, R-controlled vowels, long vowels, silent E. And then a couple were even on to reading multisyllabic words. So, and that's by the end of kindergarten. So that's why I'm here today. People wonder, how do I get them there? And that's what this presentation is generally about. I will pause for a second because I'm really bad at seeing if there's any questions, but does anyone have any questions yet that I should stop now before I move on to like the actual? No. Anyone? Okay.
I do.
Oh, yes.
Ashley,
Yes.
Megan.
I want to confirm what I think I heard you say. Did you say that you're in a school that does not use structured literacy right now? So you're a lone ranger?
No, that's not exactly true. Oh, yeah, that's good. I am in a school that is a charter school that has created a lot of our own curriculum, and not all, and a lot of the teachers have created their own curriculum or have used their own curriculum. So for a while, we did not have a core reading program. And we had because I was having success with teaching, I was encouraging other teachers to teach in a certain way, but we didn't have something we were all using. And what that also led to was not an organized intervention if kids were struggling. But my school site itself is super on board and my director is super on board. Like, for example, we're all being letters trained next year. This year I'm getting core curriculum that we are purchasing for K through 2. She's purchasing all of that. Basically, we are moving in that direction and no one was against it. It just wasn't really in place in a systematic way, if that makes sense. Okay, Amy, did you have a question for me? No.
I just wanted to check. You said
Yeah.
you had them read and write those words, right?
Yeah, so for that assessment, I was having them read it, but I also, as a teacher, well, here's an example, know that they can spell them correctly using those
Okay.
spelling patterns,
The
like on
data.
my own assessment. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And my data collection will be much better this year. Last year, it was pretty, coming back from COVID, it was rough. I wasn't in my sharpest. I forgot how to teach, basically. I'd been on the computer for like a year and was like, wait a minute, how do I do this? Took me a while to get back in the flow. So here is an example of some of my average to higher, but not highest students in my class at the end of the year in kindergarten. These on the left are independent writing samples. I basically told them a prompt to write a story about. So I think I gave them like, you need to write about a tiger and there has to be some problem, or you need to, or something like that. I gave them a prompt. I can't remember exactly what I told them. And then I just let them write it. So this was in one sitting when I just gave them a prompt and then they free wrote. And then I just took a picture of it because I was like, wow, these turned out real good. As you can see, they are misspelling certain things, but most of the sounds are present and the grapheme representation is correct. It just might be the wrong selection. Like on this word at the bottom now is N-O-U instead of N-O-W, but O-U is the ow spelling for that. It's just the wrong one. Because they are kindergartners and they haven't quite figured out all the spelling exactly. But when the students are writing, my assumption is that they choose the correct spellings and sounds. So I teach all of them to them. And I'll get into that a little bit later. I do have a couple examples of them reading, which I got to move you guys out of the way. All right. And let me make sure I'm sharing sound. Share sound. Okay, so these are a couple of my kindergartners reading in the spring near the end of the year. Pause. This is my lowest student. This is a student I have identified with dyslexia. We're having a meeting next week, hopefully to get him an IEP. I did like 20 minutes of intervention every morning with this student. So this is my really proud moment student. So this is my lowest student.
Meg is a moth with a fin wings.
All right, so as you can see, he is decoding all the sounds. You guys all disappeared now. I have to figure out how to get you back. I'm gonna reshare my screen because somehow you guys all disappeared. Huh, I can't see you now, but I know you're there. All right, and then this is one of my higher students reading.
Floats into warm
This is also a cold read. So this is the first time the student has read this book.
water. The iceberg starts to melt and break up into smaller chunks.
All right. So those are my kids
into
those are my kids that I'm super proud about. One, because they were very low, and the next because I like basically they're at the end of first grade reading level, which is where I try to get them in kindergarten. What button do I push to see you guys again? Because I can't not, oh, there we go, view. Here we go. Gallery. For some reason, when I'm sharing it, I can't see anyone, and it's really hard for me to talk when I can't see anyone. Let me try and share it one more time and see if it, yeah, like somehow I disappeared you all. Here we go. Yay. Okay, I found you. All right, so the main question that people ask me is, how do you get your students here, and what's the best program? Therefore, I have this unicorn. Basically, there is not a best program. Everyone is always searching for the program that can serve the most kids and get the best results the fastest and is the easiest to implement. And basically what I have found is that you do have to compile stuff together to get an effective program, with one caveat that now there is a program out there that I will tell you is the closest thing to the best program that I have found that is the easiest to implement, and it is this. If you do not have this manual, carry this. I have now gotten this for all of my K-3 teachers. They all started using it in the last 2 weeks. They all love it. They can all implement it immediately. It costs $70 and everything else is free. So even if you can't get someone to buy it for you, I don't know, have a big sale and buy it for $70. So it's the Youth Foundation through University of Florida Literacy Institute. And it is just a systematic, explicit, has everything in it, including creative words and word chains and everything in the lesson for one page, with no words to read for you to talk to the students. That like every curriculum I open is like 6 pages of like teacher information for the lesson. This is like you open it and you just teach it. It is amazing. Other than that, there's not a unicorn program, and that is not the program that I have used in the past. It's just the program I am now purchasing for my school, so we have a core phonics curriculum to work off of. Instead of having a unicorn of a perfect program, what you need is training and knowledge. Because you guys are all here and in this group, I'm assuming that most of you have some training, have some knowledge about teaching structured literacy. But the number one thing you need to know is that you are teaching sounds, not whole words. And this is one of my favorite quotes. If a child memorizes 10 words, the child can only read 10 words. If the child learns the sounds of 10 letters, the child will be able to read 353 sound words, 4,324 sound words, and 21,655 sound words with 10 letters. So that shows the power of teaching sounds instead of words, and especially going from a speech to print direction of starting from the sounds in the language, showing the kids how to represent those with written letters or graphemes is huge, and it is impactful. So that is the number one knowledge you need first if you want to be a good literacy instructor. Teach them the code and the sounds that are represented for those. If you are if you are interested in learning more, these are some of the best books that I have read, or that I started out reading when I was beginning my journey into finding out more about structured literacy. You as an instructor have to know the common sounds and the graphemes that represent those sounds. You do not need to know all of the rules that are out there for spelling. People can get really, really into all the rules, and it gets pretty convoluted and like dicey between like why this A is pronounced this way or that way. Something I don't have in this slide, but that is one of the most important things I also learned is set for variability. Kids will say the word that is the most similar to what they are decoding. They do not need to know every single rule of how to like map out a word based on every single little spelling pattern. If they get close enough to the pronunciation when they're reading it. So if they say an a instead of the schwa sound that is in that specific word, they will usually jump to the word that they know, which is called set for variability. Some kids are much better at that than others, which intrinsically makes them better readers because they're whoop as was, where another kid is like was. I don't know what that is, but set for variability is the ability to say whoop as and then jump to was because it makes sense and it's the closest known word you know. But as a teacher, you need to know the sounds and graphemes that represent the most common spelling patterns to be able to instruct effectively. You also need to be familiar with, which I'm hoping you are, and you probably are, the simple view of reading and the strands of Scarborough's reading rope. I'll talk about those in a second. Yes. So very quickly, because I'm sure you know this, simple view of reading, you need to have word recognition skills as well as language comprehension skills to get the end result of reading comprehension. If you're missing word recognition and decoding skills, you're not going to be able to take the print off the page in order to understand what it means and comprehend what you're reading. The same goes for if you have really good decoding skills, but your language skills are really low. Even if you can decode the words, like you could think of yourself decoding a high-level science word, if you don't have the vocabulary and the understanding of that, you still will not have comprehension. It's kind of the same how you could decode and read through something written in, say, Spanish if you don't speak Spanish. But just because you can read it doesn't mean that you understand it because you don't have the vocabulary. So if either one of those is lacking, you're going to have poor reading comprehension, which is your end, what you want. That's the reason we read, so we can understand what we're reading. So both of those components are important and need to be focused on. That is kind of blown up into the skilled reading, the reading rope. And the top part there in the red is the language comprehension skills you need, and that as a strong literacy instructor, you do need to focus on at all levels. And the bottom is the word recognition, including phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. They are both important, but they kind of shift in their importance over time. In foundational, like reading instruction in kindergarten, first grade, you really need to hit that blue level hard. Like that's where the majority of your focus is. And you are, of course, bringing in vocabulary and doing read alouds and talking about predicting what's going to happen in the story that you're reading out loud to the children, that type of stuff. But they cannot comprehend what they cannot read, and they cannot read if they can't decode. So that kindergarten through second, the blue area is where you are spending the majority of your time and your explicit systematic instruction in that area. Okay, so we're going to get into life-changing first steps. So these are the things, as someone who went through the process of trying to figure out how to teach kids how to read, were the most important things that I learned that if you tomorrow begin implementing as a teacher, will increase your students' literacy, like I would say exponentially. Of course, that's not research-based, but from my own experience, these things will increase your literacy instruction. Number one, and I will go over each of these in a slide. So I'm gonna cover each of them. I'm gonna go over them quickly now and then go into each of them in depth. So number one, follow a scope and sequence of skills, not levels. So especially in foundational K through 2, you need to know what skills your students are missing. Can they not read silent E words? Are they missing R-controlled vowels? Do they not know H digraphs? You need to know those skills. So that's what you should be assessing on. They should not be given a reading level. They should be given a skills assessment, and your assessment should be skills-based, not level-based, especially if they are still reading under, everyone has different leveling systems, but like we also use RAS kids at my school. Like I say under level G, they 100% only need to be skills-based assessments. They should not be being leveled in readers under level G because it's basically meaningless and they're only reading because they're repetitive. And we know all the issues with leveled readers. I hope. If you don't, ask me questions. And once those basic common graphemes and spelling representations are learned, then kids can move into trade books, and leveling isn't really such a no-no anymore. They are reading. You're wanting to ensure that they're moving forward through like multisyllabic words and that type of stuff. But it definitely in the lower levels, you want a scope and sequence, skills-based. I said I was going to do this fast and then I started talking. Darn it. All right. Teach the alphabet out of order. This was the number one thing I learned as a literacy instructor that changed my entire curriculum and changed my kids from like barely reading CVC words at the end of the year to reading CVC words by week 3 of kindergarten. So change the order of your alphabet. I will talk about that. Be a stickler for impeccable handwriting. A lot of people don't want to force is a rough word, but force very young children to write carefully. I will also tell you why that is important. All activities that you do should, if possible, include decoding and encoding. They should be sounding out the words and they should be writing the sounds in words in the same activity, if possible. The best way to teach reading is through writing. So if you're not having your kids write every single day the sounds that they are learning, then you're missing out on a huge, like super solid opportunity to increase their skills. Dictate and model sentences daily. That goes back to the writing. Use background knowledge to cement sounds. This one is my own thing that I found that has worked well. I'll talk about it more. And then comprehension is a result of strong foundational literacy instruction, not a skill to specifically focus on. A lot of times if you have a core curriculum, like benchmark or something like that, it's all about like finding the main idea and all of this other stuff that you're focusing all these skills on, which usually develop naturally in students. Obviously, when you get to higher grades and higher order thinking, you need to focus on those skills. But you can do all of those comprehension type things through read alouds. You don't need to focus your explicit instruction on those skills at the very young age. You should be spending it on the decoding and phonics type stuff. And then create a system that is repetitive where you can just change the activities and you're not recreating an activity every single day. I will share some of my activities that are basically you just change the sound every day. They do the same exact activity. What that creates is a classroom where kids can work independently in smaller groups because they know exactly what to do. They're just using the new sound. So I'm going to go through all of these, but I will stop for questions. If anyone has any questions right now, and I start talking fast and then any questions? Okay, so teach the alphabet out of order. So this is the number one most important thing you can do. I teach 3 letters a week. I usually do 3 letters a week, and the next week I do 3 new letters, and then the week after that I review the letters that we've done, and then I move on to 3 more letters, and then 3 more letters, and then usually a week of review, and then I assess like, okay, where are the kids? Are they drowning or are they basically getting it? And then I might add another vowel or something and slow down a bit. So, but generally 1 letter a week is not enough. You need to do more than 1 letter a week. I have found 3 works really quite well for most kids. If this is not the only order that you can use, this order is called SAT-PIN because SATPINN are the first letters that you teach. A lot of programs start with M and other continuant sounds, M, S, N, continuant, meaning you can hold them like which is easier to blend. Is easier to blend than so if you're starting with stop sounds, it's a little harder. But if you, and this is true because I don't know what week of school we're in, week 4 or something that I am in, but if you start with this order specifically, by week 3 of kindergarten, if you've done 3 letters per week, the kids can spell and read all of these words at the top. Then you add another letter or 2 and you get all of these words. You add 6 letters, so this would be like for me week 4 or 5, they could technically spell all of these words. Read them, write them. That is a lot for kindergarten in the first month of school. The reason that you want to teach letters out of order and not in alphabetic order is because they can so quickly start building words to read and spell, and that cements the letters and the sounds very rapidly. If you're just teaching a and then b and then d, I think at that point you might be able to spell one word, and then and then maybe you can spell bed, although that has a B and a D in it, which is very difficult for kids to remember. So like if you're going through the alphabet in order, it's going to take you a long time to start building words. And then those sounds are basically irrelevant because they're not using them. So they're not cementing in their head. If you're using like sat pin in that order, within the first couple weeks, you can be like, my kids were writing sentences like, I sat in a, you can write an entire sentence because you have the sounds and the grapheme knowledge to do so. So number one, change the order that you teach the alphabet. It will force you to change your entire curriculum, which it did mine, because everything I had created as a teacher was in alphabetical order, and I had to reorder all of my alphabet books. I had to rearrange basically all the stuff I was teaching, and most of the stuff I had created that were like roll and write the letters or those types of things were in alphabetical order. I had to recreate everything. So changing the order of your alphabet is a huge thing because you do have to recreate a whole bunch of resources that you may have already created. All right, handwriting. Be explicit. So there's multiple reasons for this. The number one reason is if you are very explicit with handwriting, it helps the children to cement the letters and the sounds because they can link them to an image or a shape that they recognize. If every time they write an A, it looks entirely different, and they are not able to form it correctly, the link between the sound and its representation as a grapheme is pretty weak. Like, you want to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it. The other reason is the difference between a P and a B and a D all has to do with being very careful about which direction you're writing and where you're starting. So be explicit means tell them exactly how to do it. This curriculum on the left is handwriting without tears. I highly suggest it if you don't have any handwriting curriculum. They have a scope and sequence of letter introduction that might be different than the scope and sequence you have, but the practices they use for the kids to gain handwriting skills are really great. And it's very simple. All letters are basically lines or curves. So if you teach handwriting in lines and curves, it becomes very simple. Everything is a big line down, hop to the top, a little curve forward, a big curve forward, and your language becomes very systematic and the kids know exactly what to do. I will show a very quick thing of me systematically teaching how to write the letter T to my poor distance learning children during COVID. Silver lining, now I have all these videos and stuff that I can share with you. So let me start.
Hi everyone, Miss Ashley here. Great job.
Okay.
All right, the last thing I'm going to do with you guys is I'm going to show you how to write the letter T. You have a chalkboard just like this at your house in your bin that your parents can get out for you. And there's a very special way we use this chalkboard. Whenever we use this chalkboard, we pretend this is the top line. Ooh, top starts with T, and this is the bottom line. So you always start your letters at the top and go down to the bottom. So let's get our T so we know what it looks like. Where can we put it? Okay, right here. You can still see it. All right. So we're going to do this capital T first. So we're going to start right in the middle at the top, and you're going to do a big line down, and you're going to hop to the top over here and do one line straight across. T. One thing I see kids do a lot when they're trying to write a T is they do a line down, and then they try and do a line this way, and then a line this way, and it ends up making too many lines and getting kind of sloppy. So a T only has 2 lines, one down and one across. Let's try it one more time. If you want, and you want to pause this and you want to get your chalkboard and practice with me, you can. So you're going to start at the top. Big.
Okay, so basically you see how explicit that is. You have to tell them exactly how to write it. If you do that, on top of them being able to identify the letters more rapidly because they know exactly what they look like, they don't have sloppy handwriting, which is almost incorrectable by like 2nd or 3rd grade. If they write poorly in kindergarten and 1st grade, by second grade, it is cemented and it is so hard to change. So you're doing everyone else ahead of you a huge service by spending time making sure you're explicitly teaching them how to write. The other thing is it allows them to be able to write independently because they are confident in how to form all of the letters. All right. So this next thing is something I learned, and I will start this with a caveat of there is a lot of different beliefs about this program that go around on Facebook. So basically, most teachers are able to teach the letter sounds, and then they get stuck when they get to the hard sounds. Like, how do you have a kid remember all of these spelling patterns? Like, it is so difficult to have them remember all these spelling patterns. So basically, what I have found works very successfully is to find kid-friendly prompts that help them say the sound, just like you say apple and they say ah, like you have a thing that makes them say the sound of the letter. So the program I'm referring to is Secret Stories. It gets very either pro or against it on Facebook. I am not condoning that program specifically, but the process that is used in that program to come up with a simple story or prompt that makes the kids say the sound. Most people are familiar with this. If you say pirate sound, the kid will say R because you've taught them what sound is a pirate. So you can teach them this grapheme. You can prompt them if they're reading the word park and they come to P and they get stuck on the AR, you can say pirate sound, they'll say R, and then they can read the and blend together to park. The reason I'm not specifically saying Secret Stories, the curriculum is the best, is I don't like all of their stories personally, and I don't like all of the graphics that they sell with their program. But the idea is gold. So the idea itself changed my kids. It was the other thing besides changing my the alphabet order that got my kids able to read at almost at like a first grade level by the end of the year, because I could teach them all of these spellings, not all of the majority of these spelling patterns, and they could remember them. So the idea is golden. The program itself, you decide whether you like it or not. I recreated it in my own thing, which I can't technically share because it is a copyrighted program, but I'll show you what I've done. But I can't share all those materials because the program itself is copyrighted. So that's my shout out. So here's how it works. If you have not seen the Secret Stories program before or heard of using phonics stories to teach kids to read harder graphemes, this is how it would work. So if you showed a kindergartner this word over here, and I actually have to escape out of here so that I can move these around. So if you showed the kids this word over here, they would probably say which sounds nothing like the word shower. All right, so the problem is that this word is actually three separate phonemic sounds. It is sh, ow, and and each of those have their own spelling pattern that the students would have to be aware of to be able to successfully read this word. So the way that the stories work is that you tell the kids a little story that elicits the sound they need to say, and then you title that story, and then that's what you use as the prompt. So here is my very quick version of that. I would do this much longer for the kids, but for you guys, here we go. First sound. The first sound is called the quiet sound. When S and H get together, their favorite thing to do is go to the library and read books, but everyone's always being loud. So if you ever see S and H together, they're always walking around saying, and that's the quiet sound. So if I say quiet sound, you say, shh. Basically, you tell a story like that, and you have them link it to the graphemes S and H. All right. Next. All right. When O and W get together, and OU is on the same one as you would tell us. When O and W get together, they're always doing wild things and like riding their skateboards and jumping off of big things and being super wild and crazy and getting hurt all the time. So if you ever see O and W together, they're going to be saying, ow. So, and I call this the Band-Aid sound. So if I say Band-Aid sound, what do you say when you need a Band-Aid? Ow. So we have quiet sound, shh, Band-Aid sound, ow. And the last one, and this one is actually from the Secret Stories, is called the bad driver sound. When E and R get together, they like driving cars a lot. R is always grabbing the wheel and he's a really bad driver. And so they're always having to slam on the brakes. So if you ever see E and R together, you always hear like the brakes are being slammed on. So this would obviously take over a long time to read these or tell these stories to the kids and build up their knowledge of the different stories. But once they have the prompts, when you get to a word like this, you can underline the different sounds for them, and you can say quiet sound. They will say shh. Band-aid sound, ow. Bad driver, Now say all of them. Shh, ow, What word? Shower. That is how I get my kids to read at the level that they read at, because I am able to give them a story that links to their background knowledge about something that gives meaning to the letter pairs. The story is not related to the grapheme at all in any way, but there is no reason that a 5-year-old will understand that SH makes the sh sound. So all you're doing is giving them a reason that they can remember. So this is a thing that you could look into the secret stories if you want. I would love to be able to share this, but it is a copyrighted program, so I can't share all the stuff I've created. But I have literally now made my own book that has all of the stories that I have for to every single one of my kindergartners, so the parents can read it at home with them. And it, like, literally the speed at which kids can pick up these graphemes is amazing. If you give them some knowledge of why they're saying the sound, which really doesn't actually have to do with anything. And there's certain times where I'm definitely teaching the rule too, like about when to use which spelling at the beginning of a word or the end of a word. So there's other phonics, like actual rule knowledge that goes into it, but this just helps them make the sounds very quickly when prompted, if that makes sense. Okay, next. Does anyone have any questions yet? I will pause because that was a lot. Yes. Marcy, is that you?
Sorry, it's taking me a while to turn off mute. I had asked, and Amy was going to ask you, but I'm wondering, will we get this slideshow? Can you share that?
Yes, I have it, and I will also, the last slide of the slideshow has all the links to all of my materials, like the ones on this page that I'm showing you right now. Okay. So you can have all of those too.
I keep taking pictures, but if you're going to send it to us, I don't have to do that anymore.
Yes, I will send it to you. I will, before we leave, I will put it in the chat. And then, and if not, I don't know, Amy, if you have a way of emailing or something, people, I can email it to you and you can re-email it to people, maybe along with the recording or however. Okay. So the next most important thing or shift you need to make in your classroom is that the kids should be decoding and encoding words every single day, all day long, as much as you can. And this also goes along with creating the systems that kids use so that they can work independently with your supervision, but so you can also work with a smaller group and they will have something effective and meaningful to do when they are working independently. So most of the things that I create are somewhat self-checking. For example, this right here is a sorting between the two sounds sh and s. As you see, I have my little stories up here. Like this is the quiet sound. TH is called the rude sound because you have to stick your tongue out on your teeth to make this sound. So those little prompts are up there for them so they can remember. But basically the way this works is they pick a word. These are cut into little strips and they're flipped over upside down on the table. They pick a word, they read it, and then they have to find it they know which sound it goes under. They have to find the corresponding image and then they write it. When they're done, they read all of the words they've written. So there is a cyclical process of reading it, writing it, and rereading it. And the reason it's self-checking is if you read this and you say, sh, ah, and you're looking and you're like, none of these match that, you're going to reread it as a kid, hopefully, to get to where you need to go. So I have a video right here of a kindergartner doing this activity. So you can see kind of how it works. She's already completed most of it, but see if it works. Flow is the word.
And it's at the end, so it's OW.
And then they need to say each sound as they write it also. Okay, so that's like very quick. They pick a word, they read it. She said slow. She hears O at the end of a word. So I have taught the spelling for that is OW at the end of a word, not OU or OA or something else, or not OA or some other spelling of long O. And that was the spelling pattern in this that we're practicing between OA or OW. So if you hear it in the middle of a word, she knows it's going to be OA spelling at the end of a word OW generally. The next on the bottom here is just your pretty average, say the sound, say what I have them do is pick a picture like this right here. Pick a picture, say each sound, catch, ch, draw a dot for each sound, ch, then write a corresponding grapheme to each sound that you've just said. So the more that you can do that in class, and then on the side, rewrite the whole word. Then when you're done, I have sheets for these. Then when you're done, you read all the words that you wrote down the side. So it's that reading, spelling, rereading. Over and over and over again. Go to my next one.
Whoa.
Pause. All right. Okay. Dictate and model sentences daily. So people wonder how I get my kids writing the way I get them writing by the end of the year. One is I use writing every single day in my classroom as much as possible. The other is that as soon as we get enough letter sounds under our belt, and when we're done with that, with the alphabet, we are writing a sentence every single day. That is what we do in my class for our writing, for our like main language arts activity, besides our table switching time. So as a whole group, we are writing a sentence every day. I model explicitly how to do that. In November, this is, we had learned, I had taught them the 2 E's, long E, which we call scaredy cat E's. I had taught them TH digraph and also this word, the, as basically as a sight word, but they're able to decode it with the TH I had taught them. So basically the sentence we wrote, every day you dictate a sentence, you only use the sounds that you have taught them. And you explicitly teach them how to do it. So this sentence was, I can see the cat and the dog. And I would start, I'll show a little video of it. Of like first word is I. Everyone say I. How do we write I? Just a capital I. Next word, can. Everyone say can. Let's listen to all the sounds in can. First sound. All right, start at the dots. Little curve back, like you're literally telling them exactly how to write and what to write. As the year goes on, like in May, this kid is now able to write a story independently by herself because she has every day written a sentence where when you come to a word you don't know, what do? You say the word. You say each sound you hear in the word. You write a grapheme for each of those sounds that you hear in the word. Then you space, next word. If you already know how to spell it because you've written the 95,000 times, you just write it and then you go to the next word. So like you're building throughout the year their ability to independently be able to write. I think I have a
Hi kids.
minute and 20
I
minutes.
am making this video because I want you guys
This
to
was
know
me
the
telling
words.
the
So I'm going to do an
parents.
example of a sentence. The sentence that I might want you to write is I can sit. So your parents or whoever's helping you would say, all right, you're going to write I can sit. And then they'll tell you, what's the first word? I. So then you need to start right here and you're going to write I by yourself. Start at the top, big line down, stop at the bottom. And you can do this with me if you want in your journal on the first page. Line across the top, line across the bottom. I. All right, let's think now. I can sit. So our next word is can. Can. So whoever's helping you is going to say, okay, say can, and you say can. Now count all the sounds in can. All right, so you're going to write all those sounds. The first sound is and then and then for can. So is a C. Remember, I've told you this before. When you write a new word, you need a space. I even like to put my finger there so I know I have a space. I'm going to write C for can. I'm going to start at the dot.
Basically, you can see it's very explicit. You tell them exactly what to do. I was teaching the parents how to do this. So I was being very explicit so the parents knew what to do. Because that was the hardest thing in distance learning. I basically had to teach 22 families how to teach reading. So if you are that explicit, by like November, you can kind of be going through sentences much faster. This was like the first or like maybe third week writing a sentence or something like that. So they need very explicit instruction. Like my students already, oh my gosh, the first day we wrote a sentence, I was like, this is impossible. They're never going to be able to do this. Oh my God. Like I was writing down which kids I needed up front so I could help them while I was doing the whole class. And it was like 12 of the kids. Like, but then by the second day of doing it, I was like, oh, it's not so bad. And by this week, I'm like, oh, there's 3 kids who can't do this unless I'm telling them where to write. And so I have them sit right up front near me and I point to the line of where they need to start. And I might even, I use highlighters, not dots, for that. If I have a couple kids who actually need to copy, they cannot independently write it. So I use a highlighter because they can write right over it. If you have those kids who are that far below. So explicitly model sentences every single day. Also, once we get to the point where kids are a little more independent, I will model a sentence like, I go to the park, and we all write that together like I just showed you. And then I will tell them, all right, I want you to write one thing that you went on. So you're going to write, I went on the, and they get to come up something. And I don't model it. I have them do it independently. And then they start becoming more confident in writing independently. And I can also check to see like how much can they do by themselves. So it's a really good like informal formative assessment to have them then write their own sentence after you've done this for quite a while, because you want them to be successful. All right, that's always going. Dictate model sentences daily. Okay, that is most of what I have about what I do daily in my class. Obviously, there's a million other things, but we only have so much time. As Amy said, I will share the links to all of this. I have, if you open the slideshow on this last slide, this right here is an entire different presentation that I did for reading intervention training for the staff at my school. So this was me training like my aides and other people who are going to be in classrooms with kids who don't know anything because they were just working at Jack in the Box and now they're the aide in our classroom and they don't even know what structured literacy is. So basically it's explicitly explaining how I want the intervention program at our school to run. These are the slides for it here, and this is the actual video recording of me giving, like teaching the training. So if you'd like to watch that, it also has a lot of good information, especially about like systematic phonics instruction, basically, and explicit instruction. And it would be very beneficial to watch. This right here is Miss Ashley's literacy stuff. Some of you may have seen this on a Facebook page or not. If you have not, this right here is everything you need to start teaching kids how to read in your classroom. I will click on it and see if it opens. Okay. So every page of this, if you go to it, is the top link right here will take you to what is shown on the page. These are letter sound slides. So basically it goes through every letter. I guess I'll open it. I might get lost in here. Can you guys still see this? Can you see my Google Drive? Welcome to my Google Drive. So basically, if you pick any letter, they're all in here. Let's see. We did this one today. You have to make a copy of these to your drive. Just make a copy to your drive, and then you can edit them however you want or do whatever you want with them. But basically, it will tell you exactly how to introduce the sound. There will be a video of me teaching the sound, including how to write it and all of the like pictures I show for the sound. Like I will show like, here's a rabbit, here's a rose, here's the color red. All of these things start with R. So basically I am teaching the sound, and then every slide after tells you what to do. So discuss how each word starts with R. So you'd say, here's a rat, a road, and a rainbow. What's the first sound you hear in all of these? Start with the sound. The next one, this I changed, the instructions are different than what I do for this, but I basically ask them, does it start with the sound r? Does rocket start with r? Yes. What about, is this a rurtle? And they were like, no, it's not a rurtle. It's a turtle. What's the first sound? T. Is this a wrangling? And then they start hearing when the sound is there or not. Basically, you keep going down. It is like, they're each like 15 slides. Can you hear the sound in the word? We're going to write the sound. This is how you draw it in the air. Here's a video of explicitly how to write the sound. Then there are other videos that are the sound in lots of fun little videos for them, or a little game of guess the object that starts with that sound. Then there are slides that are rapid naming of the sounds that you've learned so far. So the way this works is there's a program called PALS, which is really effective. But basically you just rapidly name the sounds. Oh, that one's start at the beginning, and then you just go through. Then that leads to reading words with those sounds, with the sounds that you have already learned. And this is following the SAT pin order. So the slides, if you follow the SAT pin order, are in that order, and that's how they would build. There is also a link to the or how to play Switch It, link to the blending board that you can open up and use the UFly blending board. There is a decodable book that I have written that has all of those sounds and only those sounds in it. And then if you need some fun crafts to do in your classroom, there's also phonemic awareness practice at the end. So that's basically every slideshow for each letter in here. So this one slide, if you click on that, you can make a copy of those and it will have the entire alphabet in there. The next one, decodable books. I could not find books that followed my scope and sequence that were affordable, so I wrote them. There is, if you click on, you'll be taken to all of my free books. So you can make a copy of all of these. They're sorted into basic sound groups. These ones go to long A. There's not a set for every single sound in here, because after I made them and I shared them, a lot of people really wanted them, and they're like, you should sell these. So I made a TPT store. If you want to click here, all of the books are $1 a piece, so they're very cheap. And basically all the sounds are in those ones. But you are welcome to use these. If you open them, you will see they are super cute and they are fun and the kids love them, and you can print them or you can display them for the kids to read. And these are all the free ones. Like, it's not like you have not a lot of access. There's a ton of free ones here. I just read these two with my kindergarten class today. So they also follow the SAT pin order, and they start out, I tried to not put basically any undecodable sight words except for I very slowly introduce them. I want them to be able to decode almost every word they're reading. So they are highly decodable. I think the might be the first sight word, I and A, but I teach them the letter I and that it is a vowel, so it can spell its name or its sound. So, but they are extremely decodable. So there are a whole bunch of decodable books that you can use. These are word reading slides. I use these all the time. Basically, they also are a Google Drive. Just make a copy, but you open it up and you click. Every time you click, a new sound will show up. And then there will be a picture like this is for you. Or then there's a picture. So you can have the kids say the sounds out loud, blend it together, say what word they think it is, click it again, and the picture will show up. And there is basically, they're numbered 1 through 10, and they build off each other also in that SAT pin order. If you're using all of this stuff and you're changing your letter order, you might want to choose the SAT pin order. It might make it easy for you. What else is on here? There's like a million things. This is the order in which I teach heart words or sight words or high frequency words or non-decodable spelling words, whatever you want to call them. In the order that I teach them in, I only heart parts of words that are truly not decodable. I do not agree with hearting words until they are decodable. because the kids are still then just memorizing parts of a word. And it's the same to me as trying to memorize a whole word. So instead, I teach them the grapheme that spells that word if I am teaching them the word. For example, the is on here. I put a heart under the E because it is a schwa sound. You could technically pronounce it the, and then it would be accurately decodable. If you look on my list here, I don't have a heart under EE. I teach them EE spells E. I do not have a heart under TH in that. I teach them TH spells th or th. So the way I teach them is only putting a heart under the thing that remains undecodable for all eternity. Other people have different views on that, but I feel like you end up just teaching them sight words again if you're making them memorize all the parts that they don't know the spelling patterns to. And so this is also the order in which I kind of introduce those spelling patterns. Like if you teach long vowel on the end of a single syllable word says its name, we, me, be, he, she, go, no. So like you don't have to, they know that the vowel is going to say its name. You don't have to heart it. You just tell them, you have them practice, and they usually pick it up really quickly. So if you click on these are flash words I've made. This is my actual heart word list I use. Okay, here's the intervention and the slides for the training, which are on the end of that other slide. It is in here also if you want to watch it. Here are all the intervention activities that are described in that training with instructions. If you click on them, there's all the instructions of how to do all the interventions that I discussed. And here are videos showing what each of those looks like with a kid doing them, so you can know what it looks like in your classroom. Here are sorting activities. If you click on this, there is a sorting activity for almost every sound. Lots of sounds, lots of sounds. Like there's an AR-OR one, TH-SH one, ing-ang, ong-ung, like lots of different sounds. And you can print them all. We highlight and read the sound a lot. So if you have kids highlight or underline, you just print out this sheet. You have them underline the focus sound, and then when they read the sound as one. They read the sound as one sound. So they'd underline TH, they'd read math. They'd underline TH, they'd read it's this. Underlining it helps their brain connect those two together as one sound. The kids really like these. They are read and check strips. So this is another independent activity. Basically, this white part folds over the picture. So it's closed and they can't see the picture. They read the word den, and then they open it up and they check to see if it's correct or not. They really like these ones. Geez, it just keeps going. There's word chain switch it list. People are always asking for good word chain lists. Here's some of the best ones that I have found. I put them on there. Here's phoneme grapheme mapping sheet. So if they pick a picture, they say the sounds, they draw a dot for each sound, they write each grapheme for under each dot, then they rewrite the word over here. And then here are all the pictures by sound for them to pull to do those things. And then tile template, if you need to print yourself some tiles. And then this last page is the ultimate word sound list with sentences. There's like a 500 pages and it's like sorted by sound if you need sentences for them to write or read or whatever. This is something I found for free and was like, whoa, this makes it really easy to just print a bunch of stuff. So that's all my stuff that you're welcome to use. And I will send you the link. I'm gonna close all these things. You don't need that. That's all my kids that I'm worried about at my school. Okay. All right. I think that is it. I've been talking for too long now. Over an hour. All right. Questions? Anyone? No? No questions? I've answered all of your questions.
I was going to say, so I teach distance learning and when I say, any questions, and it's just always like crickets.
Yeah.
So I don't have a question, but I just want to share that you were so thorough that I have no questions. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That is amazing. And that you're sharing your resources. Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Yeah. I don't know if you teach distance learning kindergarten or first grade, but those letter slides, I'm telling you, I've had lots of people be like, oh my gosh, my kids love Miss Ashley. She teaches them all about the sounds because it's all on the slide.
I teach pre-service students.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, and I have a friend that teaches kindergarten, and she's actually she's in New Hampshire, and I kind of help her out too. So, but thank you. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ashley, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any other questions before we tie it up? Well, you can always email me and I can ask Ashley and I'll get you the links. Oh my gosh, Ashley.
Yeah, so are you just going to send them the links? I don't need to worry about trying to drop them in the chat and leave a screen and come back or something.
Yeah, you just send them to me and I'll get it all forwarded off. I
Okay.
mean, unbelievable amount of resources that teachers can take back tomorrow and use, and just if they don't have anything, we can say, here it is. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to show you this behind me. So I can never find teacher size movable tiles. So someone told me about dry erase index cards. So this is what I'm using. They are magnetic dry erase index cards, and I can just do words with kids like all day, move them around.
Are they like a 4x6?
Yeah, they're like, I got them on Amazon or something, and it came in like a pack like this. Like there's a ton of them.
Wow.
And it was pretty affordable comparative to buying teacher size like grapheme tiles, and also you can write whatever you want on them. So this is my current this year new edition thing, because I couldn't find anything that was affordable and that was big enough for the kids to see. They're all small.
Yeah.
I don't know. So.
Love a good teacher hack.
Yes. And that works great because they're dry erase. So. Yeah.
Let's see.
Right,
Stacy wrote a question. What have you noticed as a result of including supporting, or can you see it in the chat? I love
it. But I don't know exactly what it means.
Yeah.
You mentioned including those supporting students. Oh, like the aides and that type of thing, like including those who support. So yes, basically what I found was that a lot of people needed instruction in how to teach structured literacy, but usually the person who's sitting and helping the struggling kid while you're up here teaching is the aide, and so they need to generally have a good understanding of what they should be doing to help. Obviously, they're not gonna hopefully be the person doing the intervention. That should be someone who's more highly trained. But in your general classroom, if you have someone in there helping, they're probably helping the kid who needs more more intervention, more structured literacy. So hopefully they're using the correct verbiage. They're knowing about sounds and graphemes and that type of stuff. So yes, I have found a positive result in those aides or other people in the classroom feeling more confident in helping kids. And when I'm giving them an activity to run, like some of those activities I showed you, like the sorting activities or things, they're not just like, okay, guys, sort the words. They're like helping the kids say the sounds and map them correctly because they're more familiar with it. So yes. Anything else?
I want to respect your time too. You're just such a wealth of knowledge and everything. I don't think you've slept probably for 10 years with all this stuff.
Dude, right now, like setting up the whole literacy program at my school, after I was telling Amy right before, like after COVID, it's not like we have, 3 struggling readers. We have like 40 because a huge number of them, and we only have 130 kids in our school, but a bunch of them missed first grade, second grade, so.
Oh, I did have a question as we go through, and then I promise I'll stop.
Yes.
What is the kind of the trend as you get kids to read by the end of first grade goals, the trajectory moving on, are first grade and second grade and third grade teachers being able to, they're holding all of that and being able to, just dig deeper and elaborate or move
so
on to comprehension?
Pre-COVID, yes, my kids would go into first grade basically reading. And so instead of starting at like CVC words and short vowels, that teacher would start at at reading. Like they can
Wow.
read at level G, definitely read at level G. Most of them at like level J, which is end of first grade. I don't know what DRA levels those equate to, but I think level G is DRA 12. And so they were basically reading, they just need a lot of practice because they're little and they tire easily. So reading longer amounts and reading more fluently. So they would work on fluency more and accuracy and automaticity. And by second grade, they're working on more formal spelling. So not just using the correct grapheme, but choosing the correct spelling of the of the sound. And by third grade, hopefully reading and writing independently. And that's generally how it played out. And then you'd have like your 3 to 5 kids that needed extra and needed intervention. This year's different. Yeah, last year was different. But I think we're getting back on track.
Wow.
So yes, that's the plan. But like this year, last year was the first full year we had back, even though we were all masked and all like it was different. It was the first full year we had back. And our first grade teacher, it was her first year teaching. So she got the kindergartners who had all Zoom, basically started back near the beginning of kindergarten because there was enough kids. And we had like a bunch of new kids come because of COVID and whatnot. We usually don't have a ton of turnover. And the kindergartners, so the kindergartners I got went to her this year and she was like, oh my God, they can read. Like, this is amazing. And then she's like, wait, what am I going to do now? Like, what do I teach? Like, I just spent last year, like teaching basically kindergartners and like now these kids are coming and they're reading. So like, it does create the next level up has to teach where the kids are. But what generally happens is the first grade teacher will be used to getting kids who can read and then teach from there. So yeah.
It's pretty cool.
We're still in the repair stages though.
Yeah.
Hence the
Goals,
everyone uses
Anita. We've got goals, right?
And like our second grade is starting. This is awesome also because it's K through 2 all in one thing. And our second grade is starting at the first grade level because that's where they are. That's what they need to build fluency and automaticity. Our third graders are starting at the beginning of one group is starting at the first grade level and another group is starting like the beginning of second grade level. And then he has some kids who are fine and doing independent reading activities during that time, but like you got to meet your kids where they are. And after COVID, they are all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Ashley. We really appreciate it. And I can't wait to get
problem.
this shared. And you have a great school year.
Thanks for having me. All right.
Thanks. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. I guess I will stay on for a second and I will make sure I
know if oops, get goofed. I was going to try to stop the recording. Oh, there it is.